Hey there, it's me, Dree. So, when I tell you my healing journey hasn't been linear, I definitely mean it. Rebuilding my life this time after he had left for good, it wasn't a steady, graceful climb out of the rubble. It was jagged, it was messy, and it was full of emotional highs and crashing lows I couldn't predict, control, or even understand. One day I would wake up with big energy, ready to take on the world. And the next day I'd wake up and I wouldn't even hardly be able to get myself out of bed. It felt like I was living inside a storm that I couldn't get calm. My reactions, they were bigger than the situations that caused them. My emotions could swing from hope to despair in the span of a single afternoon. So after months of being this way, I finally booked an appointment with a psychiatrist. I remember sitting in the waiting room that day. My legs were bouncing with nervousness. I was feeling the weight of my own exhaustion. Part of me was scared of what the doctor might say, but another part was just desperate for someone to understand what exactly it was that I was feeling. The office was quiet. It was clinical, almost too still. The doctor asked me about my history, my triggers, my worst days, and I answered his questions as best as I could. But the truth was, I didn't even have the words for the depth of what I was feeling and what was going on inside. So when I finished, the doctor leaned back and told me something I had never heard before. He said that sometimes when a person goes through severe trauma, the brain, it loses its ability to regulate their emotions. He said it's not weakness, and that it wasn't a character flaw. He said it was a change in the wiring that happens when you've been living in survival mode for way too long. And just like that, without much ceremony, I was handed a diagnosis. He said I had bipolar disorder. There was no gentle lean-in, no step-by-step plan for how to rebuild my life around that diagnosis. It was just a label, and then a prescription pad. From there, my life became a cycle of trial and error with medication. I'd start something new. Then I'd wait the long weeks to see if that medication had worked, only to be hit with side effects that sometimes felt worse than the symptoms I'd even started with. Some of the meds made me gain weight so quickly that I couldn't even recognize my own reflection. Other medications made me feel dizzy, sick, or so sedated that I could barely make it through the day. One medication even stripped so much hair from my head that I had to go from long, flowing locks to a short, sharp, blunt bob. I couldn't put my hair up, and it wasn't because I wanted the bob. It was because it was the only way to hide all the hair that I was losing. And during the middle of all of this, I had my girls. My oldest by this time was around 5, and I'd have to say my youngest was about 3. And those 2 little girls, they brought so much joy to the day. My oldest, the child that doctors once said would never live and later said would never walk, she had defied the odds. She had learned to walk at age 3, And now, by age 5, she had just started doing the unthinkable, climbing a set of stairs. It was amazing. And my youngest child, she was developing into the most aware and helpful little soul you could ever imagine. A typical afternoon back then may have looked picture perfect from the outside. My oldest would be beaming as she reached the top of the stairs on her own. My youngest would be handing me a crayon and asking me to color a picture with her. The room would be filled with their laughter. But inside I felt like I was watching it all from a distance. Like I was behind glass. I was present, but I was unable to touch the full warmth of those moments. I was still shining at work because by this time, that's just what I did. I would put every ounce of my brain power into my job each day, into performing, and into showing up as if nothing was wrong. And by the time the day would end and I would return home back into my role of being a mom, I would be utterly depleted. I was physically there for the best days of my kids' early years, but mentally, I was somewhere else entirely. So after more than a year of this chemical roulette that I was going through, the doctor told me that it was time for him to go to his last resort. He put me on lithium and a mood stabilizer. And at that time, his words, they felt like hope. Finally, maybe this was going to be the end of this long-lived guessing game. And maybe I could have my life back. But taking this combination of medicine came with risks. And it meant that blood tests would need to be done every 3 months to make sure my levels stayed safe and where they needed to be. And it didn't take long for me to realize that while the chaos in my mind had started to quiet, something else had gone silent also. The detachment became real. It was like my head and my body had separated into 2 different worlds. I wasn't dealing with side effects from drugs anymore. But the disconnection that I was feeling was so extreme, and before long, it became my new reality. And here's the hardest part of it all for me to say. That new reality, it has never really quite gone away. It's 14 years later, and my drug-induced state of mind mostly remains the same. It wasn't easy in the beginning when it was all so new, but eventually that fog has become a part of who I am. Here's the thing about living in a fog. You don't realize how much you've lost until you start to see little pieces of yourself again. And in that, you realize that those pieces have been gone all along. There are days I wish I could go back to feel those moments with my daughters in the full color that they deserve to be seen. Some days I wish I could go back to remember not just the picture that's in my head, but also the feelings. But this is my truth. That medication, it's given me stability, which has been huge. But it also stole a part of my presence. And I've had to learn how to live with that and how to be that way. What I want you to take from this isn't pity, but maybe just some perspective. You see, we all carry something unseen. We all have pieces of ourselves we've had to bury just to make it through. And maybe we never get all of those pieces back. But that doesn't mean we stop trying. Because even in the haze, it's possible to still move forward. And even in the fog, it's possible for you to still find your light. So if you've ever lived in a fog, or if you've ever had to fight pieces of yourself you thought were taken and gone, then I want to hear from you. Leave me a comment and tell me your story. I read every single one. And if this video spoke to you, then please like it so that way it can start to reach the people who need to hear it the most. The next video I'm going to do is going to take us to the time I thought I had finally found my true love, my soulmate, my forever. He was a man I believed had saved my life and taught me what love was truly about. And when I met him, I believed that it was going to be my happily ever after. But that chapter of my life changed everything for me. Changed more than what had already been changed. Sometimes, even in the deepest fog, love can feel like the first break of light through the clouds. And it's in that light that things start to shift. So remember, where there is love, there is light. I'm offering mine to you, and I'll see you guys in the next one.